What if I told you that some of the most disturbing human experiments of World War II were not committed in Europe? What if I told you that in the frozen outskirts of Manchuria, thousands of men, women, and even children were treated not as prisoners, but as raw material? And what if I told you that for decades, this story was buried, not because there was no evidence, but because powerful nations chose silence? This is not speculation. This is not wartime exaggeration. This is Unit 731, a covert biological warfare program operated by Imperial Japan between 1930 and 1945, where science crossed a line so dark that even history hesitated to look at it directly. Pause for a moment, because once you understand what happened here, you won't forget it. In the early 1930s, Japan was expanding aggressively into mainland Asia, and in 1931 it seized control of Manchuria, a vast region in northeastern China, rich in coal, iron, and strategic railways. Officially, this was about resources and regional dominance. Unofficially, it created the perfect laboratory. Because in occupied territory, far from Tokyo, oversight becomes thinner, accountability becomes flexible, and human lives can be redefined. The Japanese military leadership feared that future wars would not only be fought with bullets and bombs, but with bacteria. If disease could be weaponized, an enemy could be destroyed quietly, efficiently, and without traditional combat. And so a conflict was born, not only between nations, but between ethics and ambition. At the center of this program was a military doctor named Shiro Ishii, a highly educated microbiologist who believed that biological weapons would define the future of warfare. Ishii was charismatic, persuasive, and relentless, and he convinced high-ranking officials that Japan needed a secret research division dedicated to epidemic prevention. At least that was the official name. In 1936, under the cover of the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department, a massive compound was constructed near Harbin in occupied Manchuria. High walls, guard towers, underground facilities, laboratories equipped with the latest technology of the era. It looked clinical, organized, scientific. But behind those walls, science operated without restraint. The unit's internal nickname for prisoners was Maruta, logs, like pieces of wood to be cut, measured, discarded. When language strips away humanity, action soon follows. Prisoners, mostly Chinese civilians, but also Koreans, Mongolians, Russians, and some allied prisoners of war, were deliberately infected with deadly diseases: plague, cholera, typhoid fever, anthrax. Doctors observed the progression of symptoms with meticulous detail, recording how long it took for fevers to spike, organs to fail, skin to darken, and breathing to become shallow. And then came the procedure that still shocks historians today: vivisection. Surgery performed on living human beings without anesthesia. The reasoning? Anesthesia might distort the data. Imagine the cold logic in that statement. Patients were restrained to tables while organs were removed for study, allowing researchers to observe the direct effects of disease on the body in real time. No painkillers, no consent, no mercy. These were not isolated incidents carried out by rogue individuals. They were systematic, documented, approved. The experiments extended beyond infection. In the brutal winters of Manchuria, prisoners were forced outside with exposed limbs to study frostbite. Guards would wait until the skin hardened, striking it to test whether it had frozen solid, before researchers attempted different thawing techniques to determine which caused the least tissue damage. Others were subjected to dehydration experiments, forced starvation, and pressure chamber testing to simulate high-altitude conditions. And then the scope widened. Unit 731 did not limit itself to laboratory walls. Field tests were conducted. Plague-infested fleas were bred in large quantities and released from aircraft over Chinese villages to study how disease spread among civilian populations. Wells were contaminated, food supplies were tampered with. Entire communities became unwitting test subjects in biological warfare experiments. The estimated death toll from these operations, including outbreaks triggered by these experiments, is believed by many historians to reach into the hundreds of thousands. Pause there. Hundreds of thousands. Not in a single explosion, but in waves of infection. In 1945, as Japan faced defeat and Soviet forces advanced into Manchuria, Unit 731 initiated a massive cover-up. Facilities were destroyed, documents were burned, remaining prisoners were executed to eliminate witnesses. Members were ordered to maintain absolute silence, even under interrogation. And for a while, the silence worked. Because when the war ended, the world focused on other horrors: the Holocaust, the atomic bombings, the rebuilding of nations. Unit 731 faded into shadow, but the shadow did not disappear.
it shifted. When U.S. occupation authorities learned about Unit 731's research, they faced a decision: prosecute the scientists for war crimes, as had been done in Nuremberg, or obtain their data. The U.S., entering the early stages of the Cold War, was deeply concerned about Soviet biological capabilities. The research from Unit 731, however immoral its origins, was considered strategically valuable, and so a controversial agreement was reached. In exchange for full disclosure of their research findings, many leaders of Unit 731 were granted immunity from prosecution. Shiro Ishii was never tried as a war criminal. Several former members went on to hold respected positions in academia, medicine, and pharmaceutical industries in post-war Japan. Think about that carefully. Data derived from human suffering, absorbed into global military research. Justice, postponed. Or perhaps, negotiated. For decades, survivors in China struggled to have their experiences recognized. Many victims' families never received official apologies. In Japan, public awareness of Unit 731 remained limited for years, with some records classified and others minimized in textbooks. It wasn't until the 1980s and 1990s that former members began publicly admitting their roles, confirming what survivors had said along. The testimonies were chilling not because they were exaggerated, but because they were calm, clinical, matter-of-fact, as if describing routine laboratory procedures. That may be the most disturbing part. Not rage, not madness, but professionalism. When cruelty is systematized, it stops looking chaotic. It starts looking efficient. And efficiency can be terrifying. Today, the remains of Unit 731 stand as a museum in Harbin. Concrete corridors, exhibition panels, photographs behind glass. Visitors walk through spaces where decisions were once made that altered countless lives. But here is the uncomfortable question that lingers in the cold air of those ruins. If nations, in times of fear and war, are willing to suspend morality for strategic advantage, what guarantees that it cannot happen again? Scientific progress moves forward, military technology evolves, global tensions shift, and history shows us that knowledge, once acquired, is rarely forgotten. The question is not whether humanity is capable of such actions. History has already answered that. The real question is whether we are capable of remembering, honestly. If stories like this matter, if the hidden chapters of history deserve to be examined rather than ignored, then keep asking questions. Keep reading beyond headlines. Keep challenging simplified narratives. Because sometimes the darkest truths are not the ones we don't know. They are the ones we chose not to see. And history always waits for those willing to look closer.